Welcome, everyone. We are just honored and delighted that you're here with us today for this very, very special presentation, Youth Speak. And we have with us today some very powerful speakers. And every year at CSW68, we have at least one event that is planned and delivered by our youth or our student representatives to the UN. And so we know you're in for a treat. I am Tezkaya Gabriel from Pathways to Peace, and I am here to provide a platform for our youth to have a voice in some of the most critical issues of our time. So we're so glad that you're with us as well. So each of the students are going to introduce themselves, and I have the pleasure of introducing several of us who are not students. And so the first one is I just want to give a special thanks to Emma. And Emma was in a position for quite a few years to present as a student rep, to Pathways to Peace student rep to the UN. And she now is our techie guru for many of our events, as well as is an incredible peace builder herself. So, and she's providing tech support for our time together. I'm going to turn it over to you, Emma, to kind of say just a couple of things about yourself and provide a tech framework for our time together. Emma.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Emma DBAs. I am a freshman at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. Just a few things about me. As Tez said, I am the tech person for Pathways, as well as running some of the events. I ran Tez's and David Wick's event last week for CSW, and I am myself a presenter as well. I presented at CSW66 and 67 for climate change and women with education, as well as technology innovation. Now you can see where that got me being here now as the tech person. Just a few little notes about the Zoom tonight. The chat feature will be used as well as reactions. So first off, the chat feature, you can find the chat feature in the more, where the three dots are. You click on it and then the chat comes up. You click that, and myself and Tez, we will be monitoring it. So please be respectful. I have to say that just in case. But we respect each other in this room, and these students put very, very hard work and dedication into this. So we want to respect that as well. If you have any questions, you can go through the chat and you can ask your questions through there. There will be a Q&A at the end, and that is where the reactions come in. The reactions is next to your apps on that bar, the same where more is. Reactions, you're going to click it, and then that raise hand function is going to be there, like what happened with my hand. And then from there, Rachel and Adriana, the two presenters, will see them, and then they will be able to call on you, and then myself and Tez will be able to unmute you. If you have any other tech support questions, you can message me privately in the chat. Do not message everybody. Just message me privately. All right. That's it, Tez.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emma. We bow to you. Thank you. It's so interesting, isn't it, to be behind the scenes versus being the presenter.
Very interesting.
As our young women are here today. So I also have the pleasure of introducing two of my adult colleagues. And again, I want to say, as people are coming in, that what you're about to experience has been totally produced by the young women and the student reps of Pathways to Peace. And so I always say that Mr. Anthony is the one that really trains, mentors, supports our youth. Yes, we can give him a round of applause. And then my only role is to provide a platform for their voices to be heard. And so I'm so delighted. And in just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Anthony to say a few words. But we all love you, George, and we're so delighted with these years of work that you have put into our students with the Global Leaders Institute. And George has worked around the world in mentoring and training youth. We also have with us today one of our other United Nations representatives for Pathways to Peace, Tawhid Rahman. And Tawhid is the head of Model UN and has come in a partnership to join Pathways to Peace and bringing youth through Mr. Anthony, the Global Leaders Institute, and our work. And so thank you, Tawhid, for the work that you've done to bring these incredible students to the forefront on the global stage. So at this point, I'm going to just ask us first to just, as we always do with Pathways to Peace, to just kind of settle in, to take a few deep breaths, to center ourselves, and to open up our hearts and our minds to what we will be hearing today and to these brilliant young women who are bringing the message. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, George.
Thank you, Tez. And I'm so excited again to be part of CSW68. We go back to so many CSWs, but for us, the key word is to really bring in the young voices. And one of the things I try to sort of teach the young people I work with is that to change the world requires a buy-in. And that buy-in requires matching your core values, your vision, your beliefs with others who share a common truth, a common search for peace, for hope, for promise. And I often say, especially when I used to work with youth from the Middle East, I used to say to them that this moment doesn't define the rest of your life. This moment defines who you are now, but what you do with today, what you do with this space, what you fill in this space will determine what you create. And what you create, you give to the world, and that becomes part of your passion. So youth play such a big role, Tez, when they own that message. And then we always say that's the key. You just can't go in. It's not a standalone. Working with these schools, Tez, we know it's not a standalone project. It's not a one-day in. It's a lifetime in. And what we do is we tell these students to create these projects, which you'll see tonight, which the students from the Newark School of Global Studies and some students from also from Red Bank Catholic, New Jersey, created. And what you'll see tonight is a program that they created, projects that they create. Some of the projects are astonishing. You'll see them, you'll hear them tonight. And not only that, but projects that they can cultivate as they follow these projects throughout their lifetimes. I know many of the students we work with join us into the United Nations, as Emma, Caitlin, I'm really have positive feelings. Some of these young leaders tonight will be following us into the UN, pushing these projects out to the world. But Pathways to Peace for so many years has, well, we're determined to provide a platform where intergenerational peace builders can create these safe spaces where we can mentor each other, provide resources, develop platforms for peace. All right, peace is not a vacuum. Peace is something that we all believe in, we are part of. It's part of our core values. So today is a product where youth leaders, youth voices, in partnership with Pathways to Peace, will take their message to the world. So excited to sort of be a part of this space. So thank you, Tez. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, Rachel, for all the hard work you've put in, and all the other youth leaders, Juliana Burns, all these youth leaders who really worked so hard to make this night happen. God bless.
And we're going to hear from Mr. Rahman. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting my students and giving them the opportunity to speak before you. So once again, my name is Tawhid Rahman, and I'm a UN representative for Pathways to Peace and a teacher at the Newark School of Global Studies. I hereby would like to formally introduce my students who have worked tirelessly for several months to present their work and passion for CSW68. Rachel Harnarin, Adriana Araya, Jada Lee Casso, and Divine Kibe. I have been their teacher for about 2 years, and I have to say, I cannot contain my pride and excitement to showcase their tremendous growth and their hard work. I am more than sure that these students that you will be seeing in this presentation today will one day change the world. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I look forward to seeing this happen. Thank you.
And now we begin. Rachel? Rachel, we can't hear you. There you are. Oh, now you're muted. Speak to us.
Hear me now?
Yes, I think so. You're a little bit gurgly, but
Hi,
let's
can you
try
hear
it.
me?
Yes.
Difficulty on my end, but
Rachel, we are having a problem.
Emma,
Rachel, we really are having a problem hearing you. Adriana, do you want to pick it up and then maybe Rachel can get her connection taken care of? There she goes. She'll come back in. Go ahead, Adriana.
hopefully Rachel will be able to resolve her connectivity issues. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adriana Araya. I am a current senior at the Newark School of Global Studies, and I am a representative now for Pathways to Peace. Thank you so much to everyone involved today for your amazing support. Nothing that we're doing tonight would be possible without you. Thank you so much to Mr. Rahman, our mentor, for giving us these opportunities and nurturing us, because I feel as though without him, I wouldn't have come into a field of interest in this, and it's provided such amazing opportunity to see the world and really learn about myself, and I believe that Rachel will agree when she enters. So today we're going to be covering a large amount of topics regarding women and a lot of the things that they face in society. You'll hear some of my peers discuss gender wage gap, the effect of social media on young women, and I will be discussing how there are so many disparities facing women every day in society because of social norms that have been ingrained in our brains for generations and generations. So thank you all for being here and being present and interested in what we have to say. I believe that the youth is the future. So having so much support is truly unequivocally like the most amazing thing. So thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. And I will hopefully be able to introduce Rachel very soon if she gets back in here.
Rachel was in for a moment, but I don't see her back in the room. Emma?
I do not see her either. She was here for a second, but then her video did get a little bit spotty. So what we are to just continue on for what we have planned, and then we can always go back.
Yes. So Adriana, do you want to pick up your presentation? Here she.
At the moment,
Rachel's.
Oh, okay. I believe Rachel had the ability to share the PowerPoint, so
So
I don't
Emma,
know who will be presenting now. I'm unable to.
Emma can pull up the PowerPoint.
I can pull up the PowerPoint.
We always have a backup, so
This is why.
never fear.
Thank you so much, Emma.
You're welcome. This is why I do what we do.
That's right. Yay, Emma. Rachel, just to give a little update, Rachel was in for a second again and then didn't stick. So we're just going to pick it up at your slide, Adriana.
I should probably go find that slide first.
Yes.
Give me 1 second.
That's okay.
Adriana, would you like me to start right at the top, or do you want me to go straight to your slide?
You're muted, Adriana.
Right at the top should be
Okay.
good.
There you go.
Okay, so today, along with some amazing young voices, we'll be speaking about breaking the silence and empowering young female voices. Next slide, please. First up, we have an amazing video on women in leadership by Red Bank Catholic High School, which is a high school that also works with Pathways to Peace, who worked in collaboration with us to create this amazing video, which we'll be showing to you now.
Hi, my name is Juliana Burns, and when I think of peace building, I think of leaders. Leaders are meant to inspire, support, and build up your communities. Today, student voices from Red Bank Catholic, with the help
Is
of
it possible to turn up the volume, Emma?
of Global Studies, will bring our voices together in these 4 key concepts.
Hi, I'm Maya King, senior here at Red Bank Catholic. Advocating for empowering the leadership of all women, especially young women of color, is essential for achieving gender equality and fostering diversity in leadership positions. When it comes to minority and indigenous communities, this advocacy takes added significance. Due to historical discrimination and lack of representation, seeing individuals who look like them in positions of leadership can inspire young women of color to envision themselves in similar roles. Representation helps combat feelings of isolation and reinforce the idea that leadership is accessible to everyone regardless of race or ethnicity. When young women of color are encouraged and supported in leadership roles, it fosters a more inclusive and equitable community where everyone feels valued and respected. In this inclusive environment benefits that not only people of color but society as a whole by promoting social cohesion and harmony. Helping to empower the leadership of young women of color is essential for achieving gender equality and creating a more inclusive and equitable society. By investing in their leadership development, addressing systemic barriers, and promoting representation and diversity in leadership positions, we can create a world where all women have the opportunity to thrive and lead. This is important to me because growing up in an African American and Hispanic household, there wasn't many women I was able to look up to that looked like me and had a major role in society. Now as an 18-year-old, I've made it my passion in my life to help younger girls of color be able to see girls like them do great things in society and to show that we can do whatever we want as long as we put time and dedication into it.
Hi, I'm Jesse Bluemaker. As a minority myself, minority leadership and resilience is a very important topic for me. Leadership to me is not solely leading others, but it's also leading yourself. I am blessed to have such figureheads or leaders, if you may, in my family, such as my grandmother. She emigrated to this country from a country with political turmoil in search of a better life for herself and her 7 children. Leading herself through a plethora of cultural and linguistic barriers, her identity prevented many opportunities. More people said no to her instead of yes. However, she did not let those no's keep her down. Her resilience inspires me to transcend the false boundaries and narratives that we are not able to lift ourselves up. Our identities are what make us who we are. As America Ferrera said, your identity should not be an obstacle, but instead a superpower.
Hi, I'm Danielle Barbuti.
And I'm Kayla Nile. Human trafficking is a topic that we feel interested in because we feel it affects both our nation and our world.
Human trafficking, in simple terms, is the business of stealing freedom for profit. It includes manipulation, fraud, and assault of another person who is often innocent.
In order to bring people together and create peace and unity, there needs to be focused on those who are in desperate need of our attention.
While many victims are young women, any person can be subject to human trafficking. Children are most vulnerable to this situation.
Juveniles can be used as profit for multiple reasons, the most common being sexual exploitation. Every day, about 13 children are trafficked and forced into labor and slavery.
This adds up to 300,000 kids each year. Once they are taken, it is very difficult to help them and get them back their freedom that was stripped away from them.
For most people, it may seem like something that would never happen to them or their loved ones. However, almost everyone is in danger with these institutions running behind closed doors.
We need to protect ourselves in order to prevent more innocent people from being in this situation. There must be more measures taken to stop trafficking, including better security and action.
This is unnecessary violence and exploitation taking place in too many countries that needs to be addressed.
Hello, my name is Barbara Galis, and as a Latina woman, women empowerment is so important to me. Women empowerment is not about women just having a seat at the table. It's ensuring that they have an equal voice, equal opportunities, and an equal right in everything. Women empowerment is about dignity, respect, and human rights. We must challenge stereotypes and break down gender norms that limit women's ambition and potential. Every girl growing up should know that her dream is valid regardless of her gender. We must provide them with tools and resources, whether that be an access to education or healthcare, anything. We have to give girls a voice. We must work together to create a world where every woman is able to achieve her fullest potential. So let us amplify the voices of women and uplift their stories. Growing up, sometimes I felt that my voice was never heard. I grew up with boys, and growing up with them, I always wanted to be like them. I wanted to be as tough as them. I wanted to be as fast as them. I just wanted to be seen. But now, I want to be a voice for others. I want others to know that I care, and I want to be a voice for those who stand alone or those who are silent. This is just the beginning of my journey, and my voice will count.
Women are powerful, women are fearless, women are strong. It doesn't matter where you come from, and it doesn't matter what your background is or what you look like. As women, we need to put our confidence first. Personally, growing up, I struggled with confidence, and I was a very shy, reserved person. Public speaking and standing up for myself was hard, until I learned to embrace my flaws and accept my insecurities. We are always expected to dress a certain way, to look a certain way, to act a certain way. We need to have the confidence and the ambition to work hard for what we believe in and break those stereotypes. Being a woman is about drive, it's about courage, it's about having the ability to stand up for what you believe in, because that is what's going to get you to reach success. And it is statistically proven that successful women prove and promote a better economically stable society. Therefore, women have the power to change lives, promote balance in a country, and to contribute to the greater good of the society.
My role as a peace builder in my community is to promote compassion, collaboration, and help to foster the role of the inherent goodness of humanity in society. These initiatives start with a proactive I can attitude. So often, we allow ourselves to become consumed by the magnitude of the problems around us, allowing ourselves to believe that the situations are above our individual control or influence. How can I build solutions for conflict around me when I am overwhelmed with the personal challenges I face on a daily basis? Why is it that conflict we deem more important, such as that on a larger scale, seems so out of reach? In so many aspects of the world we live in today, peace does not become a major concern until we face crisis. Communities won't begin coming together until there has been destruction. Action is not taken by the public until it has begun to affect us. We don't face conflict until it is in our faces, demanding that we begin remediation. The thing is that we are given the opportunity each day to wake up and do what it takes to build peace throughout our communities. In a time where instant gratification has become such a predominant part of our lives, taking the smaller, less rewarding steps towards peace can, at a glance, seem more mundane than they have in the past. These steps, however, can be as simple as being the person to take the initiative, reaching out to a peer who never smiles back at you, being proactive in the positive effects we leave on those around us, even when it can seem hard or unnecessary. My role as a peace builder is to initiate the I can attitude among my peers and cultivating a we can mindset to promote social responsibility. By consistently working to build peace within our communities, we can bridge communication gaps and actively prevent hostility throughout society.
Hello, I'm Michael Swidolari, and I'm with the Pathways to Peace program. I want to be a peacemaker in the future, and I'm going to be now. But there's 3 important points I want to go over. Number 1, never let anybody put you down, regardless of who you are, what you are, where you are, and so on. Don't let anybody get you down based on what gender you are, or what religion you are, ethnicity, ethnic backgrounds. And don't let anybody else put any of your friends or anybody else in general down. Stop bullying. Give everybody a chance. See every single side of the story. Get a world view of the issue you want to solve. Remember that anybody can be a peacemaker, no matter where you come from. And one person can make a giant effect. And I intend to build up all these traits in both me and whoever I want to make a peacemaker in the future. Now, why discuss these points? Why do I talk about this? Well, when you read the news or just look online, everybody is always violently arguing and pointing fingers at each other. But I want to change that. I want to make the world a more honest and peaceful place. One where arguments can be solved via diplomacy or peacemaking. And I want to make the world a better place, one person and one peaceful solution at a time.
Hello, I'm Garrett Nolan, a senior here at Red Bank Catholic and a youth delegate for Pathways to Peace. Peace is unique to each individual person. To some, it's working a food bank. To some, it's working a charity in poor countries of the world. To some, it's simply smiling at each other. To me, it's a unique blend of all of these things and more. For over 4 years now, I've had the privilege to work with Pathways to Peace, and it has taught me that while our own unique definitions of peace may be tailored to us, we all share one thing, the common desire for said peace. Let's use this conference to reach the message to others and make this happen. Thank you.
Adriana? Go ahead
Yes.
and Rachel has been coming in and out, and so we'll get her in as soon as we can. But go
I'm
ahead.
actually back now. Hello.
Good.
Hello.
We're so glad you're back.
Thank you. I'd like to apologize for the technical difficulties I had on my end. And I didn't get to introduce myself earlier, but hello, everybody. My name is Rachel Harner-Ryan. I am 17 years old, and I am a junior attending the Newark School of Global Studies, and I am working with the Pathways to Peace UN NGO. And I'd like to say that I am extremely grateful to be speaking here at CSW68. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Rachel, would you like to kind of let us know What's next?
Right. So, I'm sorry I wasn't here. Can you catch me up as to what we have already covered so far?
We just watched the Red Bank video. I'd like to say thank you so much to Red Bank Catholic for creating that video. And it's very inspiring to see how youth is aware of the issues in our world actively. And now that the video is done, Rachel, it
Rachel, do you feel comfortable picking it up at Silence Serves No One?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So,
Thank you. This
So-
happens.
so, now we'll move on to Silence Serves No One. The power of silence lies in our ability to break it. Sorry, can we move on to the next slide? Thank you. I chose the title Silence Serves No One because to me, the term silence serves no one means that when we become bystanders to issues that we see, and when we don't use our voices to speak out against the issues we see, no one is helped. No awareness is brought to the issue, and often it ends up becoming worse due to the silence. Which is why today, the topic I choose to bring awareness to is human trafficking against women. What is human trafficking? Human trafficking is a modern day form of slavery, which generates billions in annual profits. Next slide, please. There are many methods and platforms in which human traffickers can reach their victims. A few examples include hotels, motels, online platforms such as social media, shady ads on websites, trucking stops, on the streets, escort services, strip clubs, and commercial flights. These are a few examples provided by the New Jersey Division on Women, which showcase the shady ads I previously mentioned. As you can see, these ads target women who may be in desperate situations in which they may need money. These are some statistics on human trafficking. 255,000. That is the number of 10 to 17-year-olds involved in commercial sexual exploitation within the US, with 60% of these victims being runaways, thrown away, or homeless youth. 1 out of 3 runaways or thrown out youth will be approached by a trafficker within just 48 hours of leaving home. 12 to 14 is the average age in which girls first become victims in prostitution. 11 to 13 is the average age in which boys and transgender youth become victims of prostitution. 75% of human trafficking victims are women and children, and the annual global profit made from human trafficking is 150 billion. Misinformation. An extremely large problem within human trafficking is the misinformation being spread. I myself and many other women in which I have had conversations with on this topic have fallen prey to said misinformation. Anyone is susceptible to misinformation, and that can be dangerous. One popular yet largely misinformed piece of information that had been floating around the internet for a while has been that traffickers will leave warning signs, specifically zip ties, on their next victim's cars as a way to mark them. In an article entitled State Police Warn About Sex Trafficking Misinformation Online by Christina Ford, Lieutenant Brian Oleksky talks about how there have been many hoaxes that have been proven wrong, such as flannel shirts on windows or zip ties on cars, and that traffickers are not warning anybody. He even states that it is rare for a trafficker to even target a stranger, and it is most likely done through a computer online or somebody you already know. This is a pie chart that shows the percentage of traffickers by their relation to the victim provided by the New Jersey Division on Women, which clearly supports the lieutenant's statement. Very rarely, at about 9%, will a trafficker be a stranger to the victim. They will most likely be someone the victim already knows. Now, we've covered the problem of human trafficking and the misinformation that is often widely spread. But what can we as a society do about it? Well, before we believe any information we see online, we should fact check it by looking it up and only using reliable sources and websites. Advocate and let others know. If you find a piece of information to be misinformation, break the silence. Share your findings and back them up to inform others and bring awareness to this misinformation. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for listening. And now we will hear from Divine Kibe, a sophomore at the Newark School of Global Studies, on gender equality in the workplace. Next slide, please. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Divine Kibe, and I currently attend the Newark School of Global Studies as a sophomore. Today, I'll be delving into a topic that holds great significance in today's world: gender equality in the workplace. Gender equality in the workplace is a critical topic that addresses the fair treatment of individuals, regardless of their gender. Today, I'll discuss key aspects of promoting equality, focusing on equal pay, career opportunities, and tackling discrimination and harassment. Gender equality in the workplace is not just a moral imperative, but also a vital factor for organizational success. It involves ensuring all employees, regardless of gender, receive fair treatment and opportunities. Challenges and recognition. Despite significant progress, women continue to encounter substantial challenges in attaining equal recognition for their contributions in the workplace. Stereotypes, biases, and systemic barriers often impede the acknowledgement of women's achievements compared to their male counterparts. The gender wage gap persists, with women earning less than average than men for equivalent work. This pay disparity is fueled by discriminatory practices, negotiation biases, and occupational segregation. Maternity penalties further penalize women, affecting both their earnings and career progression. Additionally, the intersectionality of gender and race exacerbates challenges for women of color, leading to experiences of harassment, unequal pay, and biased evaluations. The lack of transparency in salary structures and historical gender contribute to the perpetuation of these inequalities. To address these issues, organizations must implement effective metrics, including tracking diversity, representation in leadership, pay equity, and participation in training programs. Equal pay. Equal pay is an essential aspect of gender equality, aiming to close the gap between the earnings of men and women performing the same tasks. Despite ongoing efforts, the global gender pay gap persists, with women earning on average approximately 82 cents for every dollar earned by men, as reported by the U.S. Census Bureau in 2021. The American women earning 63 cents and Latina women earning 55 cents for every dollar earned by men. Achieving equal pay is not only about rectifying injustice, but also about fostering workplaces where individuals are valued based on their contributions rather than their gender. Efforts to address this issue will include legal protections such as Title VII and state-specific laws like California's Fair Employment and Housing Act, all aimed at rectifying disparities in compensation based on gender. Equal opportunities for career advancement. Achieving gender equality transcends equal pay, encompassing opportunities for career advancement. Women often encounter barriers in climbing the corporate ladder, as highlighted by Catalyst research revealing that globally, women hold only 28.1% of senior management roles. McKinsey and Company's Women in the Workplace 2020 study further emphasizes the underrepresentation of women in leadership positions, with only 29% holding senior management roles. The study also reveals a concerning disparity in advancement opportunities, indicating that for every 100 men promoted to manager, only 85 women are promoted. To address these challenges, organizations can implement initiatives such as mentorship programs, leadership training to foster an inclusive environment for the professional development of all employees. Legal protections and state laws also play a crucial role in prohibiting discriminatory practices relating to promotions and career opportunities, ensuring a fair and equitable professional landscape. Addressing workplace discrimination. Workplace discrimination based on gender remains a pervasive issue, as evidenced by statistics from various sources. In the United States, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission reported that sex-based discrimination charges constituted nearly 30% of all charges filed in the fiscal year 2020. Similarly, a survey by the Pew Research Center found that 42% of women in the U.S. have faced gender discrimination at work. In the European Union, 32% of women have experienced some form of workplace harassment, according to the European Institute for Gender Equality. Moreover, marginalized groups such as women with disabilities, women of color, and transgender women face an even higher rate of workplace discrimination, as highlighted by the American Association of Women. To address workplace harassment is a serious concern that disproportionately affects women. Companies should adopt a zero-tolerance policy for harassment, providing confidential reporting mechanisms and conducting thorough investigations. Workplace harassment, especially affecting women, is a pervasive issue that demands urgent attention. Shocking statistics reveal the extent of the problem, with surveys indicating that 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical or sexual violence, often occurring in the workplace. The hashtag #MeToo movement has further exposed the prevalence of sexual harassment, with a significant portion of both women and men in the United States having encountered such behavior at some point in their lives. To combat this alarming trend, companies must implement robust anti-harassment policies, including zero-tolerance measures and confidential reporting mechanisms. As someone who has experienced workplace harassment firsthand, I understand the profound impact it can have on an individual's well-being and professional trajectory. I often recall times at my previous job where I was subjected to a variety of racist comments and unwanted advances from strangers that made me feel incredibly uncomfortable, leading to significant emotional distress. I believe creating a culture where employees feel empowered to speak out against harassment is essential for fostering a respectful and safe work environment. Legal safeguards, such as those enforced by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, should play a crucial role in prohibiting harassment and creating avenues for recourse. Implementing family-friendly policies. Gender equality is also linked to creating family-friendly policies. Companies should offer flexible work hours, parental leave, and support for work-life balance. Shocking statistics from reputable sources like the International Labor Organization and the Society for Human Resource Management
underscore the global disparity in access to paid parental leave, with only 16% of countries offering paid parental leave and a mere 21% of U.S. employers providing paid maternity leave beyond requirements. Moreover, the ILO reports that only 29% of workers worldwide have access to paid parental leave, highlighting the widespread lack of support for balancing work and family responsibilities. This absence of family-friendly policies disproportionately impacts women, contributing to the gender pay gap by interrupting careers and diminishing earning potential, as evidenced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics finding of a 39% wage penalty for women who take time off for caregiving duties compared to men. Offering flexible work arrangements such as remote work and adaptable hours, or perhaps even less work days, emerges as a critical solution to support both men and women in achieving work-life balance and creating a more inclusive workspace culture. Conclusion. In conclusion, achieving gender equality in the workplace requires a versatile approach. By addressing equal pay, providing equal opportunities for career advancement, and actively combating discrimination and harassment, organizations can create environments where individuals can thrive based on their skills and contributions rather than their gender. It is not just a social responsibility, it's a strategic imperative for building successful, forward-thinking workplaces for not just our generation, but for the future ones as well. Thank you.
And that was a wonderful video by our very own Divine Kibe. And I'd just like to say that I really loved how her video brought into light the many problems that women face in the workplace and brought up many other problems that aren't really talked about because they're considered taboo. And I just really love that she brought attention to all of that here, especially at CSW, where these things really need to be talked about. And I loved her solutions as well. Now, let's hear from Jada Lee Gasso on the effects of social media on the development of young girls.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jada Lee Casso, and I'm a sophomore at the Newark School of Global Studies. And tonight I'm going to shed light on a topic that's very close to my heart, which is the effects of social media on the development of young girls. So, for starters, it's no news that social media has had great impact on the way teenage girls view themselves and their mental health. While many are aware of the topic, not many think why that is or how it is that it happens exactly. And while for many teenage girls, the journey down the social media rabbit hole begins with unrestricted access to technology from an early age. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube operate on algorithms, meaning that what you see is what you interact with. And according to an article by Forbes, it states that a whopping 95% of teens aged 13 to 17 are active on social media. And a real eye-opener is a research conducted by the Pew Research Study Center that states that girls outweigh boys, with 41% of us admitting that we're on social media way too much compared to 31% of boys. Plus, 58% of girls find it tough to imagine life without social media compared to 49% of boys. These stats paint a clear picture of just how deeply ingrained social media is in our daily lives. When younger girls are exposed to these algorithms, it creates the belief that what they're seeing is real, even though it's not. This is because it starts altering the way they view themselves and creates an endless cycle of self-doubt. At first, they might be on social media because they think it's cool and because their friends have it, but it gets deeper than that. According to Amanda Raffo, an instructor at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, in adolescence, the part of the brain that processes emotions develops faster than the part that develops judgment and critical thinking. The effect this inevitable part of brain development has on teenage girls consuming media content is immense. This is because of unrealistic expectations. As a young female under the age of 18, social media has had a great impact on me while growing up. Social media often sells itself as an escape from reality, but for many teenage girls, it becomes our new reality. The constant barrage of picture-perfect images and perfect lifestyles sets impossibly high standards, making it easy to fall into the self-doubt and comparison trap, because it's what we're used to seeing all day, all the time. And from my personal experience, when I first got social media, I got social media because all the other kids around me had social media, but after a while, it got really draining to have because I was getting reoccurring thoughts about the same thing over and over again, what it had to do with my body image, looks, or lifestyle. And now being older, I understand that it was completely normal for me to not have those unattainable things at the time, but being a young girl and reacting rather emotionally than logically, I was not able to understand that, and what hurt the most were the thoughts I was getting at such a young age. This is because social media has the power of creating self-doubt within seconds, and especially at a younger age when feelings are rather emotional than rational, it doesn't go away after a while, especially when you're on algorithm-based platforms. What this does is that it reinforces those initial feelings about yourself day after day after viewing the same content continuously. Those thoughts are brought up over and over again, creating that cycle, and this is where mental health is at risk. We adolescent girls often engage with content on social media through an emotional lens. We tend to react instinctively to what we see on social media before engaging in critical thinking. This emotional response can lead to internalization of certain messages or images like eating disorders, depression, and more, setting the stage for a recurring cycle of emotional reactions to similar content. Once the cycle begins, it can be hard for a teenage girl to break free from the pattern, as each emotional response reinforces their connection to the content and perpetuates the cycle of consumption. An article by News Medical written by Dr. Sinceri Sanhidura, she states the following: the risk of developing eating disorders can be predicted by photo-based social media activities of adolescents. A recent study conducted on middle school students has raised the possibility that spending too much time on social media may increase the risk of eating disorders. Overall, in the article, Dr. Sinceri explains how prolonged exposure to social media has been linked to an increase in eating disorder, which connects to what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned that being on social media for a prolonged amount of time creates a emotional response that can internalize certain images or messages. And this is because social media, and due to this, due to this, social media is the leading cause of eating disorders and depression because of its inevitable part of a young person's thinking process. And what furthers the issue is society's acceptance to the behavior. Society goes, she's just a teenage girl, it's about normal, it's typical, she's gonna get over it. And point being is that it's not normal at all. As a young female myself, the acceptance of the issue made it hard for me to speak up about it because I felt like it was indeed normal and that it was typical and that I was gonna get over it. But what happens is that there's not many girls that acknowledge that there's an issue with that and that it's not normal at all. Of all psychiatric disorders, it is observed that anorexia is associated with the highest mortality rate, which is 5 times the observed in the general population according to age and sex. And anorexia nervosa is more than twice as common in teenage girls, with an average age of onset of 15 years, making 80 to 90% of patients with anorexia females. While these statistics are concerning, I beg the question, what defines normal? It's imperative to intervene early and implement preventative measures to counteract the influence of social media on girls' development, as these effects are long-lasting, and here are some of my possible solutions. My first solution is digital literacy, which is a solution backed up by experts. Digital literacy is a crucial tool in addressing the issue of media exposure and its impact on young people. By enhancing their understanding of the psychological and emotional dynamics at play online, youth, particularly teenage girls, can navigate social media more effectively and critically. Digital literacy empowers them to recognize and analyze the influences shaping their thoughts and behavior, thereby reducing the likelihood of falling into harmful patterns like those associated with anorexia. By incorporating digital literacy into school health classes, It helps equip our youth with the skills to distinguish between authentic content and unrealistic portrayals, building healthier relationships with digital platforms, and promoting self-esteem and well-being. My second solution is teen SEL social-emotional learning groups. I propose integrating social-emotional learning groups which have teenagers prepare material for their peers. This approach fosters a deeper sense of understanding as it presents material in a relatable and accessible manner, directly addressing the needs and perspectives of young people. By having peers deliver these materials, it reinforces the message that individuals experiencing similar challenges are not alone, promoting empathy and solidarity within the youth community. Moreover, this initiative draws attention to the issue of media influence on mental health, sparking important conversations and raising awareness among future generations. Ultimately, it strengthens connections among youth and empowers them to navigate the digital landscape with resilience and empathy. Overall, addressing the detrimental effects of media exposure on teenage mental health requires a multifaceted approach. By prioritizing digital literacy and integrating social-emotional learning materials prepared by peers, we can empower young people to navigate the online world with resilience and empathy. It's crucial to recognize and understand the importance of fostering understanding and solidarity among youth as we face challenges in the digital age. Through collaborative efforts and proactive initiatives, we can create a safer and more supportive environment for generations to come. So that was it. Thank you for listening and have a great night.
Thank you so much to Jada Lee and her amazing presentation. I think it is very important to discuss the impact social media has on young women and how it can be so life-shaping to many of us. I'd say I deeply resonate with her point on social media affecting how women view themselves, and it's so good to have someone our age be aware of it and be able to discuss it so that it becomes a more spoken about issue. Um, Now I would like to move on to my presentation, Disparities of Female Inclusion, Why Female Leadership is Vital. So I'm going to start this presentation with some slides, some eye-opening statistics on how over time disparities against women have become so widespread that we can see very specific examples. So Emma, if you can switch to the next slide, please. Women are 47% more likely to become seriously injured in motor vehicle accidents. This is because at the time of the designing of the three-point seatbelt, women's anatomy was not taken into account since there was no men and no women designing these three-point seatbelts. And now, even actively, there is no regulation that requires the testing of these seatbelts in crash tests to be conducted on a dummy that is specific to female anatomy. Now, the dummy that is meant to represent women does not do so correctly. It does not factor in, the physical differences of a woman. And in fact, it's just a scaled down version of a man. And in addition to that, there is no requirement for these dummies to be tested in a driver's seat, only a passenger seat. Another example of this is men are 23% more likely to receive CPR in public in comparison to women. Again, an issue of design. People who created the CPR learning dummies, again, did not account for female anatomy. And that means those who are trained in CPR are much less comfortable facilitating CPR to a woman because they are not comfortable with their anatomy. And it's because they were not taught how to give CPR to a woman. And so they are unsure if they can do so effectively. Next slide, please. 47% of women who have experienced the first heart attack will die compared to 38% of men. Now, what's proven over time that women are less likely to be treated for the preemptive signs of heart disease. And it's because oftentimes they're passed off as symptoms of other illnesses. Now, that is less likely to occur for a man. And women are also institutionally taught to ignore their symptoms more often than men. It is more likely for a man to go to the hospital and get his symptoms treated than a woman to do so. And the time period that a man will go in is much shorter than the time period than a woman will go into the ER to be treated. Please continue. Now, why is this? Early advancements in many fields occurred beyond the time where women had access to higher education. So, without that female perspective in leadership in many of these fields, there is a lack of inclusivity in many of the advancements that have been made. Since there was and actively is a disparity in the education of women, we lack female leadership. That means the regulations don't accurately represent women in society. Women are overlooked in medicine, in politics, in education, in reproductive rights, because we are faced with a society that is mainly led by men. And because of social biases, men are not going to be as inclusive to us as we would hope. Please continue. Now, what is gender disparity? So, historically, women's roles have been largely defined by patriarchal norms and expectations. In many societies, women are primarily viewed in a domestic sense, bearing the responsibility of cooking, cleaning, and raising children, while men are seen as the breadwinners or the decision makers. In a world that is led by men, women have had limited access to education, employment, political participation, and these social norms are reinforced by strict gender roles, which expect women to be submissive, modest, and obedient to male authority figures. Women who deviated from these norms for a long time faced social stigma and punishment. And in addition to that, women's legal rights and status often were below those of men with limited autonomy over their bodies, finances, and legal affairs. When we see throughout history there is less inclusion of women in leadership, it leads to gender disparities. Gender disparities are referred to as unequal treatment or opportunities experienced by individuals on the basis of their gender. So, since we have a society that systemically prefers men over women, we see inequalities in areas such as education, employment, healthcare, and legal political representation. The focus on women when addressing gender disparities acknowledges the specific challenges and injustices they face, aiming to achieve gender equality while addressing these disparities and promoting women's rights in employment. Now, the goal of this presentation is to aim to shed light on the various disparities faced by women and their impact on our society. Please continue to the next slide. So, first up, one of the disparities that we will be discussing is how all these disparities are what we'll be discussing is how all these disparities in culmination lead to discrimination based on just gender. So girls are more likely to be denied their rights. That means being barred from proper education, activities in school, and being subjected to violence, specifically sexual. So this continues later on in life and it will become more ingrained into a woman's life as they continue. Now, systemic exclusion of women leads to less opportunities in the future, less opportunities in higher education, and later on in life in employment. This will lead to things such as the gender wage gap, as previously mentioned. Please continue. So, discrimination in the workplace, including lower pay, will mean there's limited career advancement choices. And a lot of the times, there will be hostile work environments, which adds to the stressors of discrimination in the workplace already, and oftentimes impacts overall job satisfaction and productivity. Women are subjected to discrimination in many different ways, and this often leads to substance abuse, disordered eating, and can further exacerbate health conditions in the future. So these discriminatory um, practices also hinders the proper health care of women. As I mentioned in the past, women are less likely to receive proper treatment for the symptoms that they face. And a lot of the times, providers will also not properly treat or diagnose symptoms or not listen to women when they self advocate. So, this leads to delayed diagnosis, inadequate treatment, and poorer health outcomes. And in addition to all of this, since we do have a lack of female leadership, a lot of discriminatory laws, policies will be passed limiting women's rights and their opportunity to have a voice and autonomy over their body. That one of the largest examples that we have is the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade in a society where we are so influenced by male leadership. It is really common to see women lose autonomy over their own rights. Please continue, Emma. So, first up, I would like to discuss economic disparities. So, due to gender biases, women face discrimination economically, not only in the workplace, but in other areas as well. According to the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, women on average earn about 15 to 20% less than men across all of the countries that they studied. Now, this is a significant disparity that persists across multiple cultures and multiple economies. One of the significant contributors to this wage gap is occupational segregation. Now, occupational segregation is when women are overrepresented in lower paying fields. This includes caregiving, administrative work, and service industries, while men are represented and dominate higher paying fields in sectors such as STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and in management positions. So, discrimination and unconscious bias continues to play a role in perpetuating the wage gap. And studies have shown that identical resumes from a male and female, that a woman is more likely to be denied, despite there being all of the same qualifications, indicating there is a bias against women in the hiring process and additionally in the promoting process. Um, so, despite the significant progress in obtaining education for women, women still tend to earn less than a man, even though they are at the same education level. Now, this is referred to as the education paradox, which means this means that education alone will not eliminate the wage gap. Um, and this stands in so many areas. So it is imperative that beyond just educating our women properly, that we are putting in place measures in order to limit this discrimination and stop it completely in the future. Now, because of societal views of women, it wasn't until 1974 that a woman in the US could independently buy a home. Now, because of biases against them, banks still had the legal bandwidth, since there was no laws preventing discrimination, to deny an unwed woman loans or even require her to bring in a male to co-sign. And it wasn't until the same year that a woman could get her own credit card. Prior to that, it could only be in her husband's name or whoever was the male in her life. Though Fair Housing Acts have now limited the discrimination, um, women are still 18% more likely to get loan applications, 18% more likely to get loan applications denied, even though they are identical to their male counterparts, and statistically will pay higher interest rates in loans. So it is society's role to begin to put in legislature that will minimize the discrimination against women and be more representative of women's needs. And to do so, we have to make sure that there is representation on those levels of people who can really carry our needs and represent them correctly in this legislature. Please continue, Emma. So, the next area of discussion is educational disparities. Education historically has been denied to women and is still denied to them. Women are not given we're not given access to higher education until the 1800s, and there were still many limitations on their education. It wasn't until the latter half of the 20th century that prestigious institutions began removing their quotas on how many women they would accept yearly. In lesser developed nations, young women still face many obstacles in receiving education. This includes poverty, cultural norms that prioritize educating young boys over girls, child marriage, early pregnancy, and lack of sanitary facilities, along with long distances of travel and safety concerns. According to UNESCO, approximately 131 million girls worldwide were out of school in 2018. From a young age, children are exposed to these same societal stereotypes that dictate much of our life, and they dictate the certain roles and behaviors that they can have based on gender. As a result, many girls internalize the stereotypes that careers are for men and they are associated with masculinity. And this specifically includes the STEM field. So, gender biases may also lead parents to inadvertently or maybe purposefully encourage their daughters to pursue something that's viewed as more typically traditional for women. So this will steer them away from fields that are male dominated, like engineering, computer science, and others. Additionally, these parents are also inadvertently reinforcing these gender stereotypes by providing different levels of support and encouragement based on their children's gender. The underrepresentation of women in the STEM field is a complex issue influenced by a combination of social, cultural, and economic institutional factors. Sorry, I'm currently recovering from bronchitis. So speaking long term is a little difficult. If it's possible, can I take a quick break to grab some water?
Please take care of yourself, Adriana. This is well worth waiting for. And again, I want to just express how proud I am of our high school reps. You all are brilliant. And so whenever you're ready, Adriana, you can pick it up again.
Okay, sorry to have interrupted the presentation.
No worries.
Sorry, there was some feedback. My mom is very proud and she was watching. So from an early age, these societal stereotypes will steer young girls away from STEM fields by promoting the notion that the subjects involved in STEM are more traditionally suited for boys. Now, these gender biases and cultural perceptions can affect girls' confidence, especially when they are pursuing STEM, the abilities that are involved in STEM. And it will deter them from pursuing careers in these fields. And that's why the STEM workforce lacks diversity. And this is an issue that's become perpetuated. Due to culture. And it also means that these workplaces are a lot less welcoming and a lot more hostile towards women. Issues such as an unconscious bias and stereotyping and harassment and a lack of female leadership will create barriers for women and young girls to enter STEM in the future. Next slide, please. Oh, wait, never mind. Go back. You're on healthcare. Okay. So next we are going to be discussing the disparities of healthcare. So in a medical setting, women early in history were often diagnosed with something called female hysteria, and they were labeled as too emotional or unstable before even receiving proper healthcare treatment. Now, this also meant that women who were diagnosed did not need to know their diagnosis. Doctors at the time felt they did not need to know their diagnosis, and they would rather tell husbands, fathers, or whoever the male figure was before they told the women themselves. And this meant they had no autonomy over their diagnosis or what they chose to do with their treatment. One of the most notable historical examples that sits with me is the first female governor of Alabama. Now, when she originally gave birth, it was noticed by doctors that she had signs of uterine cancer. And instead of telling her, they told her husband. This woman went on to hold a place and to be elected as a governor. And even as a governor in 1966, she did not have autonomy over her medical rights. She was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and most of her medical information was being given to her husband, who chose to withhold it from her. And she died just a year into her term as a governor. That shows such a ingrained cultural bias against women. If you believe a woman is strong enough to lead a state, why is she not strong enough or stable enough to have autonomy over her medical treatment? Cultural and social norms impact women's access to healthcare in so many communities, especially marginalized communities. Stigma surrounding certain health conditions, such as reproductive health issues, mental health disorders, will deter women and prevent them from seeking treatment or disclosing their symptoms since they aren't properly heard. Additionally, traditional gender roles may limit a woman's autonomy in the healthcare decision making and hinder their ability to have access to healthcare services independently. Now, there are still large misconceptions surrounding women's health. Many marginalized groups lack adequate healthcare infrastructures, including hospitals, clinics, and primary care centers. And these lack of infrastructures will also means lack of access to essential healthcare services for women, such as maternal care, reproductive health services, and preventative screenings. Access to reproductive health care, such as family planning, prenatal care, and safe childbirth, often limit women in marginalized communities. This means that you have a higher level or rate of maternal mortality, unsafe abortions, and preventable pregnancy complications amongst marginalized women. Now, reproductive rights encompass the rights of individuals to make the decision about their own bodies when it comes to the decision to have children, access to contraceptives, and then also abortion services. Since rights are often threatened by legal legislation and social stigma, as well as the lack of access to these healthcare services, you have high mortality rates. So, the majority of maternal deaths are preventable and often result from complications such as hemorrhaging, sepsis, and hypertensive disorders. Factors contributing to these maternal mortality rates include the limited access to prenatal care, skilled birth attendants, emergency care, and postpartum support. Now, another major issue that is facing women in the front of reproductive rights is restrictive abortion laws. Restrictive abortion laws and lack of access to safe abortion services contributes to a high rate of unsafe abortions, which poses a significant risk to women's health and lives. Unsafe abortions are a leading cause of maternal mortality rates worldwide, because in certain regions, these unsafe abortions will cause complications later on in pregnancy. And abortion is heavily restricted and even criminalized in some portions of the world. And we're seeing a move towards that in the United States, unfortunately. And a lot of that is because we do not have proper representation in those higher places of leadership. Access to reproductive rights should be a fundamental right. But instead, we are seeing a society which limits women based on the typical gender norms or roles. A woman should have full autonomy over her medical decisions and her choice of whether or not she chooses to have a kid. And that means that we need more young women who have a full understanding of the current state of society to be representing us in places where decisions are made about our bodies. So we have the right to make that decision for ourselves later on. Now, can we please continue to the next slide? So, political disparities, which kind of sums up the entire purpose of this presentation. The underrepresentation of women in political leadership roles remains a significant issue globally, not just in the United States or anywhere on this part of the Northern Hemisphere, globally. Despite progress in recent years, it is still an issue. So I would like to read some statistics to you. According to the Interparliamentary Union, as of January 2022, women only hold 26% of parliamentary seats worldwide. Regional disparities exist. In Nordic regions, there is typically a higher amount of female representation, but that still does not mean that we are properly represented. Again, in January 2020, only about 7% of the heads of state and government worldwide were women, according to UN Women. Women's representation in cabinet positions is also extremely low, and they are underrepresented in the ministry. According to UN Women in 2020, only about 22% of ministers worldwide were women. And in 2021, only about 36% of seats in local government worldwide were held by women. Women face various barriers to political participation, including discrimination, sexism, lack of access to resources and networks, and then cultural and social norms working against them. And because of these social and cultural norms, you also have gender based violence. Structural factors such as electoral colleges, political party dynamics, and institutionalized sexism also contribute to women being underrepresented in political leadership roles. While progression has gotten better, women's representation in politics and leadership is still progressing at a turtle's pace and remains uneven across regions and countries. Please continue. So, the reason for a lot of these disparities that women face is cultural and social values. So, there is an intricate web of issues that face women every day. There are so many cultural gender biases ingrained into society. And in some regions, it's still normal for there to be such constricting stereotypes. In many cultures, they uphold traditional gender roles that assign specific duties, responsibilities, and expectations to men and women. These roles assign women to caregiving, household chores, and subservient roles. Such rigid gender norms can limit women's opportunities to education, employment, and participation in decision making processes. As previously mentioned, in some cultures, arranged marriage and forced marriage can limit a young girl's access to education. And they're still a very, very common practice. These practices can deprive women from their autonomy and agency to decide who they want their partner to be and make decisions about their own lives. Forced marriages, in particular, which often involve coercion, violence, and exploitation, are leading to severe consequences for women's physical and physiological well being. So any deviation from these norms also often result in violence and, in some cases, honor killings, which perpetuate and build a climate of fear over women. And it also means that it gives society control over these women's lives. Cultural norms and practices can restrict women's freedom to move outside of the home without men accompanying them or even to have access to education. These limitations on women's mobility can hinder their access not only to education, but to employment, to healthcare, and to social opportunities, perpetuating their dependence on the male majority and oftentimes reinforcing gender disparities. So, in a world where you feel as though you have to listen to what has been the norm for so long, it is very, very difficult for women to shed this typical role. And that means it's even more important that we as a society take steps in order to give women the opportunity to have access to education, to proper quality education that does not take a man or woman any differently, but it also means that it is very important for us to make sure that in the terms of employment that they are able to be employed equally so they can support themselves without having to be dependent on a man. um, and it is so important beyond that to make sure that there is legislation in place that prevents further violence against women, because if there's one thing that will limit a woman, it is fear. So we have to ensure that fear does not continue to perpetuate, that these gender stereotypes are not perpetuated by fear, by preventing violence against women, whether it be in domestic violence, whether it be in human trafficking, whether it be in the workplace or any time the types of abuse. It is essential to prevent violence further in order to stop women from feeling as though they have to um, be so closely attached to these gender stereotypes. Please continue to the next slide. So, in conclusion, gender disparities really go beyond just the individual. It is a giant blanket of social norms working against the woman. And it has such profound effects on the economic prosperity of a woman and their human rights. Inequalities stop our society from progressing, they destabilize communities, and they impede the rights of women and individuals. And it is essential to empower women through education, economic opportunities, and legal reforms in order to encourage their leadership so that we can further combat these gender disparities in the future. And by giving women these avenues and resources to advance, societies can unleash their fullest potential and foster an inclusive environment that will be so inclusive no matter your gender, your race, your beliefs, and it ensures the fullest fulfillment of rights and opportunities for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. Excuse my voice, please. As Adriana is getting over her illness, I am slowly getting ill. So you'd have to excuse me on that. But I really loved your presentation, Adriana. I loved the way you shed light on the different ways that women have no representation. We don't even have representation when it comes to some things that people may deem a little silly, like seatbelts. Having women in power and having women in these legislatures to represent us and have us more included is so important, and it can't be stressed enough. So thank you so much for sharing that, especially like I said earlier, at CSW where these situations and these issues need to be talked about. And now I'd like to turn the mic over to our keynote speaker, Ms. Charlene Green, for her to do a little introduction about herself.
Good evening, everyone. Special thank you to all of the beautiful panelists. You guys did such an excellent job representing this topic so well. I don't know how you guys got so wise in your youth, but you guys are phenomenal. And I'm so honored to be among you guys tonight. So yes, my name is Charlene. I am currently a social worker. I'm a mitigation specialist for legal aid criminal defense, the court part. And I'm also a law student at CUNY Law. The bulk of my social work career has been around supporting clients that have been impacted by domestic violence and/or human trafficking. And now that I'm at legal aid, a lot of that work still carries on. So this is just such an excellent topic, and I'm happy that I can be here to share space tonight.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be here and agreeing to be our keynote speaker. And we have a few questions here for you today based on your experience as a woman in your work of field. So first off, I would like to ask you, what are some signs or indicators that someone who may be a victim of human trafficking, and how can communities better identify and report these potential cases?
Absolutely, great question. So some of the earliest indicators or signs are going to be physical traits. If you see individuals that have bruisings, they can be both old and/or new. Body language, if someone is highly paranoid, if you notice that they're withdrawn, averting eye contact, that can be a byproduct of control or that person is in danger. If someone is seemingly very unfamiliar from the area, if their clothing, it looks out of season, if they don't know the language. I mean, granted, we want to practice everything within reason, but if someone clearly looks out of place, it's a high traffic, high tourist zone, that can be an indication of human trafficking. If someone looks disheveled, excessively not well kept, that can be a sign that they're not in control of their faculties. Their living conditions, if you have someone and they're constantly saying how they're working off the books, under the table, they don't have access to any protective benefits, that's also going to be a red flag. And then the most important part to support individuals is to have awareness. Have awareness that human trafficking can happen. Using your talents and your resource to partner with local and/or international organizations who are doing the work. And most importantly, listening to people, having a keen eye, believe in survivors when they say that they're struggling, and be willing to take a stand and not just be a bystander.
Thank you. And what initiatives or programs have been effective in combating human trafficking and supporting survivors, both domestically and internationally? And have you worked with any personally, and can you share your experience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this question. There are so many amazing organizations. I really want to focus in on the ones that I've worked with, because I can give some firsthand insight to their personal and their professional mission. So in New York State, the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, they actually offer a grant program to victims of domestic violence. And my first job following graduation, I worked as a clinical psychotherapist, and my target demographic were women and children that have been impacted by domestic violence, sexual violence, and human trafficking. And in that role, I had the opportunity to partner with New York State to provide grants and also provide individual curriculum. And from there, I mean, we worked indirectly with law enforcement at the time. If individuals were seeking orders of protection or relocation services, we were able to provide that. Thereafter, a little after graduation, I was promoted or invited to be a assistant director at New York's largest shelter for women who are fleeing domestic violence and human trafficking. So that capacity was really great. It was about 200 women and children and families. And we were able to provide a range of resources and support. We partnered with other organizations such as Sanctuary for Families, Safe Horizons, Covenant House, assisting individuals with all of their needs, as well as educational needs, to assist them from being vulnerable to being independently sufficient. Thereafter, right around the time the pandemic happened, when I was brought into the hospital, they really hired me for my insight to domestic violence, which had increased exponentially. And so in the ER, I was able to screen a lot of domestic violence or human trafficking cases, working with the local authorities to A, report them, and B, provide the women with resources. And then I worked at the Bronx District Attorney's Office. I worked as their human trafficking social worker. It was very interesting. I mean, in the DA's office, you're essentially working with all kinds of organizations to get women settled. We work with New York State Human Trafficking Association and a lot of independent safe houses for women, non-disclosed safe houses to get women settled. And that role was really great because you're talking about women that had literally been rescued directly from human trafficking and helping them start over, helping them get access to IDs, birth certificate, social security cards. It was a really, really great perspective and great lens. In my narrow experience, when you're serving survivors from a very prosecutorial standpoint, it can be a little limiting in your ability to be empathetic because you're trying to serve two independent interests, which is the justice for the victim and also trying to gain justice for the perpetrator. So it was a great experience, but ultimately, thereafter, I'm now with the Public Defender's Office, where we're able to support individuals who may have been victims of human trafficking, but are now being held accountable for the work of their pimp or their perpetrator, and being able to sort that out and to properly appropriate blame to the correct person, to the oppressor, not the oppressed. And in my current role, I write sentencing recommendations for persons indicted on violent felonies. It's a key role. I get to work with we have a special class of attorneys that are particularly focused on identifying, recognizing, and advocating for human trafficked persons. And in this role, I'm able to use my skill set to identify. If I can just sense it out that this person is human trafficked, I can alert it, and then the person is then recategorized correctly so they can get the appropriate empathy and support. So yeah, and then GEMS is a great organization. Girls educating and mentoring. Covenant House is a great resource for youth runaways to provide support. And New Jersey has a coalition against human trafficking. There's so many Catholic Charities, New York and New Jersey, all really great organizations. International Labor Organization as well.
Thank you. And your mention of GEMS kind of brought me back a little bit to middle school because I did participate in that program, and it was a lot of yes, my I think it was Miss Ayatesta. Yes, her name is Miss Ayatesta, and it was actually a club, and we went through the program, and it was a great experience. It taught me a lot about myself, as a woman and as a young woman, especially. This was like middle school, and that kind of it brought me back. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I'm glad that these organizations have an effect on a lot of people, and I've personally experienced that. Thank you. And for my next question, how can individuals and communities contribute to prevention efforts and support survivors of human trafficking?
Yes, absolutely. And so the best way that individuals can support is already leveraging their individual talents, um, meeting people where they are, and also meeting yourself where you are. So if you know that you have a gift for writing, reading, maybe it can be something as small as reaching out to an organization and saying, hey, I would love to volunteer. Do you need someone to read books to small children? Do you have any adult programs, or perhaps you can help human trafficked women who may have poor literacy, helping them read so they can gain independence. If you're into the arts, you can donate your time with art. If you have a legal background, you can donate some time. But really, I think it's about starting small. Sometimes we get so overwhelmed with what we can do that we do nothing, and we just end up as armchair activists. But the greatest way to really support is to identify the joy in what you already love to do, and then create an extension of that and helping someone else so someone else can find joy.
Thank you. For my next question, in what ways can law enforcement agencies, policymakers, and NGOs collaborate to address the root causes of human trafficking and ensure justice for survivors?
I love this question. I love this question, coming from someone who has worked on both sides of the field, being at the district attorney's office and being at the public defender's office. It's the same clientele, but the approaches to victim centeredness is so different. And so one of the ways that we can really foster working relationships is to come to the table about our mutual client. And I believe that having interdisciplinary interactions where everyone can come to the table, that will undercut a lot of the adversarial competitiveness that just may naturally exist in nonprofits that don't necessarily have conflict with one another, but because of their funding lines or their bottom lines, they may kind of just miss the mark at times. But ultimately, if different organizations come together and they have a baseline protocol, what it means to support people across the field, then there can be much more crossover and collaboration. The sharing of research and data. Oftentimes, data is gatekept for a variety of different reasons, HIPAA reasons not excluding, but sharing those resources would allow much more cross-fertilization and also avoid a waste of resources if entities are unknowingly working on the same projects at the same time. Raising awareness, creating campaigns that merge both technical experts and the common community, so that way all individuals can get involved. One of the reasons why human trafficking isn't a living room conversation is that it is so often seen as a complicated topic that laymen don't have an entryway in. So just creating that bridge so that it's everyday conversation, so that everyone has a place and a chance to get involved would be really, really great. And then oftentimes the survivors who make it through, very rarely are they themselves given a platform to speak. And that is a delicate balance, because when you're initially fleeing human trafficking, you're gonna want privacy and respect to regain your personhood and yourself. But eventually it would be nice if a coalition of survivors could be more readily solicited, and so that other people aren't speaking on their behalf, but they're able to speak on the behalf of survivors and encourage other survivors.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, referring to what you were talking about when it comes to collaboration, collaboration is a very large part of accomplishing many things. I am also a part of my school's Model UN team, and participating in Model UN has really taught me that collaboration is the key to achieving everything. And so collaboration, I just really wanted to say that collaboration is the way to go. Thank you. And for my last question before I pass over to Adriana, how, sorry. Um, I'm so sorry. One second, please. Oh, that was it. So I'd like to pass over to Adriana now for her questioning. Thank you so much for your responses. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being able to come and answer our questions today, Ms. Green. So through your discussion so far, you've talked a lot about your experience as a social worker and, different places of employment and how you've seen so much in your career. How do you think that your time as a social worker has informed your view on society and specifically how society views and treats women, especially those who are victims of human trafficking and domestic violence?
For sure. Excellent question. And thank you so much for asking me. As a social worker, one of our primary tools that we learn is perception, world perception, how to help other people navigate the spaces around them, as well as navigate their own emotional intelligence. And so social work is such a beautiful journey because it's introspective looking out. And as a woman of color social worker, I have the privilege of experiencing intersectionality. And so I have this heightened lens of sexism, classism, and racism. And I bring that multifaceted view to my work. And so I have the advantage that some of my colleagues may not necessarily have. And with that advantage also comes an increased cultural competency. If I have clients that are extremely marginalized and perhaps they only speak one language, maybe that language is only aggressive violence because that's what they know. That's what their perpetrator, that's how their pimp dealt with them. So that's what they know. But I'm able to see that, recognize that, navigate that, infiltrate that with kindness, and still gain traction and help that person see their human dignity and help whatever audience, if it's the judge that I'm advocating for that person, help them see it too. So my own identity as a woman of color has helped me leverage the identities of other people. And then also navigating power dynamics of privilege versus oppression. I can code switch in a way that can make individuals feel comfortable. Just having different languages that you can speak to individuals to quickly gain rapport, to gain trust. I mean, in social work, trust is currency. And so ultimately, that's what it's really about. Gain trust, that I can partner with individuals to help them get to a better place, and then use that information to partner with the judge or partner with law enforcement, partner with a prospective employer or housing, and to truly advocate for that individual.
Thank you so much. So In you answering that question, you mentioned about intersectional factors like race and language and how people interact with society. How do you think intersectional factors such as race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and sexual orientation intersect with these gender disparities that we see in society that a lot of times perpetuate domestic violence? And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there are so many different angles and equations that we can plug in, right? So you can take an individual who's a immigrant, undocumented, isn't formally protected by US citizenship. And then that same person can be a woman. Now we have the collusion of worker exploitation, language exploitation, patriarchy, and a physical power dynamic, that may exist in that romantic relationship. You can take analogous example of someone with a disability, and maybe they're a disabled person of color. So now, aside from tackling prejudice, skin color prejudice, they also have to navigate workplace accommodations, navigating bias when it comes to pay negotiation, because someone may inherently see them as less than. But ultimately, all intersectionalities, they can be weaponized as disadvantages or advantages. But the biggest gem is learning how to advocate, to create community, to speak up, be firm, know the civil rights laws that protect you in those workplaces, so that the unique strengths and talents that we bring to a workplace can be showcased as talents and not as disadvantages.
okay, so you as a social worker, what do you think that, like looking into the future, what do you envision to be the key priorities in addressing gender disparities and promoting gender equality, especially within social work organizations?
Okay. I would definitely say gender pay and work-life balance. There is not enough conversation regarding the opportunity cost of career women to start families. I think it was Divine that made an excellent point about family leave, and how really the year 2020 opened up the floodgates for both men and women to realize that there was really a scarcity and not having enough protection and support to start families. And so oftentimes that equalizing, when we talk about that 82 cents on the dollar, is really stemmed in this very archaic belief that women are worth less than men, and because their pregnancies are seen as a disability and both as a disadvantage to climbing the corporate ladder. But I think the best thing that we can do to even out the playing field when it comes to equity is really recognizing an equal opportunity for work-life balance, and to equally distribute parenthood among men and women. Like, granted, women carry and few men have access to paternity leave, but if those domestic gender roles were really verbalized, discussed, then the workplace will begin to recognize that men need equal time too to contribute, and that the burden can't fall on women to do both, and or they can't be penalized for taking leave, leaving the workplace to do incredible important work, which is starting a family and keeping a household together. And then aside from that, the anti-harassment, we've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go. There aren't nearly as many women in leadership as it should be. there's still this unconscious bias that tall white men make the best leaders, and it's just not true. We're learning in the 21st century that diversity really is the truest wealth, because differences allow us to play to our strengths, right? So more than anything, work-life balance among genders and pay equity, because pay is power. Your dollar is power. Your dollar is going to finance uh, political campaigns and policies and thereafters. So that would be the biggest two for me.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Green, for taking time out of your busy schedule to appear tonight to answer our questions and to be available. It is so amazing to have somebody who has experience and society and in social work to weigh in on these issues that we hold so near and dear to our heart. So thank you so much. Not only from me, but from Rachel and everybody else who was included in tonight's event. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Before we sign off, I just really wanted to make a quick point. One of the things that women can do is to just really make sure that we're joining professional organizations that support women, that we are finding and seeking out women mentors who can help us navigate the industries that we want to serve in. It's just really great to have individuals who experience what you experience be able to navigate the pitfalls or the customized sexism that exists from career to career. So that would be one of the biggest things I would say, in gaining access to training and advancement and learning the routes that you need to take to elevate and gain leadership in your respective field.
Thank you so much. And like Adriana said, I'd like to thank you for being our keynote speaker today, sharing your experiences as a woman and your field of work and answering our questions. It really helped us to get another perspective from the inside, and we just like to thank you. Quickly, before we are actually kind of running out of time, I'd like to thank everybody who participated with me and Adriana today: Red Bank Catholic, Divine Kibe, Jaylee Caso, Mr. Rahman, Mr. Anthony, Hezekiah. You guys have been so great, and it was an honor to work with you and to be here today. Thank you. And to everybody watching, thank you so much for joining and watching our presentation. It means a lot to us. We all worked very hard to get this out here, and we are all honored to be sharing on this platform. Thank you.
Adriana, do you have any closing remarks?
I just really want to echo what Rachel said. Thank you so much for the support from everyone, whether it's you, Tez, in giving us this platform, or especially to Mr. Rahman, who's done such an amazing job in mentoring students like me, Divine, Jada, and Rachel. Like I said, I think it is imperative to foster that sense of leadership in young women, because when you do so, the world reaps the benefits. So thank you also to everyone who is here witnessing this and supporting us, because your support will push us further into the future. And thank you to everyone who's participated tonight for your hard work and effort. I know that Jade and Divine were really working over those videos. So thank you. And I hope everyone has a good night. Tez, I'll leave it to you now for your closing.
Perfect. Well, first of all, if you have the ability to turn on your videos for our audience, I would love that. So these brilliant young leaders can see your faces. And Adriana and Rachel and all of the young women, can you believe that there is such wisdom in high school students? that are dedicated to peace, dedicated to being informed. Yes, let's all give them a round of applause. We just really, 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 really celebrate you as the peace builders you are. And Mr. Anthony has heard me say this many times. I say that wisdom isn't measured by age. And so the wisdom that you've given us tonight, just know how incredibly important it is, how incredibly impactful it is, and that we are so excited about watching your whatever it is you are going to be doing and are doing in our world. People often say youth are our future, and I say yes, and youth are our present. You are making an incredible difference in our world. So we cannot thank you enough. I'm just honored to be a part of learning from you and supporting you. I just honor Mr. Anthony, Mr. Ruckman, for their journey with you. I know they learn as much from you as I do as we give to you. And we just always close by saying, you know, and you are examples of this, that each of us is a pathway to peace. Yeah. And so thank you, thank you, thank you for who you are, for what you do. And we can't wait to hear more about what you do next. So take care, be well, and peace prevails on earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If you can imagine us giving you a standing ovation, that's what we want.
Beautifully done. Wonderful.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Inspiring. Thank you.
It's inspiring to see Charlene Green, who was my former student, return full circle to this evening. And when she was a sophomore, she actually said, "My silence serves no one." And it actually inspired the title to Rachel's workshop. So it's just so beautiful to see that.
And
moment.
this is true of George even more than it is for me, although it's very exciting for me as well. Seeing the evolution of these peace leaders, how they go out into the world and continue their work in just phenomenal ways. And George can look back a long time and witness what he has done in terms of mentoring and training and supporting these leaders to impact our world. And now, Mr. Achman, I know that you have that pleasure as well. So again, big, big love, big honor to each and every one of you. So bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Special thank you to you, Mr.
Thank
Anthony.
you.
You know, I would not be where I am without you. Thank you so much for your guidance.
Oh, Charlene, I can't wait to watch you continue rise all the way up. You just, your journey is extraordinary.
And that latest recognition too, Charlene, which is really, we didn't talk about that, but it's extraordinary. Yay.
Thank you. Have a good night,
What
guys.
is that recognition, since we have 30 seconds? What was the recognition?
George?
Charlene is her journey has been powerful. She's doing it all on her own. She's a warrior. Not an easy journey, but she is fearless in making her mark. And as a young student, she displayed that, overcoming some of the most difficult obstacles, and continue to do so. And brilliant young woman. So for me, it's just a joy to sit here. It's like a proud father to see this.
Yeah. And thank you, Emma, who of course is another one of us. As we say, Emma is a force to be reckoned with. And we're so very proud of her as well.
Yeah, Emma, Adriana, Rachel, they're a special breed. And then the young ones coming up, Divine and Jada Lee. It's going to be extraordinary next few years watching these young girls come into their own.
And Pathways to Peace, of course, is very dedicated to investing in what I call our next generation peace builders. It's just one of the most delightful parts of my work. And so you will be seeing more from all of them as we move forward. And yes, it's a very exciting journey to be on with all these extraordinary young leaders. So yay. Thank you. From the
I wouldn't
bottom
be
of
here without George and Tez for what happened in 7th grade when George introduced me to Tez for the first time. And I will never forget fixing her laptop and making that connection with technology. And now here we are 8 years later.
Yes.
I'm a freshman in college and I'm still working tech for Tez and doing what I do best with Pathways. Also, social media added on to it as well. And I cannot wait to continue doing that with Katie and Mia.
Yes.
I cannot wait with that. But
Yes.
yeah, it's really a full circle. Adriana, Rachel, you're in good hands. You're in
part of
good
the
hands.
family. You're part of the Pathways to Peace family. So we do what we can to give you a platform for your voice.
Yeah,
and
it's gonna be
support
Mr. It's gonna be Mr. Rockman's turn now to bring that youthful exuberance to the platforms.
Yes, absolutely. Okay,
right.
it's always hard to get off our time with the people we love, but let's say goodbye
Good
for
night.
now.
Good
And
night.
we love you, and peace prevails on earth. Bye-bye.
Always.